How's it going, guys? It's your boy Kanji FPL and welcome back to the channel. On today's video, we're going to be going through my 5 bets and they're on the way. But before we move on to game week 2, let's just review game week 1. We had 4 best bets going into game week 1, and unfortunately we ended up being not up a unit, not down a unit, we were just flat. So let's just break it down. The first bet was Holland to score and both teams to score. Of course, Holland got his goal in his first game of the season, but unfortunately Chelsea couldn't score even though they were at home. But they still put up 1 XG in the game, which was the most frustrating part as a fan, where they had the chances to score, but they just didn't capitalize. Nicholas Jackson, he's so inconsistent. He had the biggest chance. He should have scored for Chelsea, but he didn't, and it's fine. That's why I never really touch him for any of my player props, because you can't trust him. But it's fine. It's all good. Negative variance to start the season, but that's okay. We'll make up for it hopefully over 38 weeks. The second bet was Alexander Isak to score or assist. Even though Newcastle were down a man, Isak still did his thing. He's such a good quality player, and this is why I always trust him. The third bet was going to be Nottingham Forest to win or draw, and I knew they were going to get something at home on opening day. They needed it against a Bournemouth team that's not 100% gelling in their new system with the new players, so I'm glad that they got the result there. But the last bet was Son to get a shot on target and Spurs to win. I honestly felt like Spurs were the team that underperformed their expectations the most in game week 1, because Spurs had all the chances. They had the entire possession in the first half, but just didn't create enough XG, and Son was just so wide. It really felt like Spurs as a team were trying to build towards Solanke as their new talisman. In fact, Solanke ended up playing more minutes than Son, which was really surprising for me. So for now, I don't want to be including Son on any of my player props. I'm kind of just avoiding him from a fantasy perspective as well. I think Solanke is going to be the guy that we should be focusing on if we're going to be taking a bet on Spurs. So with all that understood, let's just move on to game week 2. My first best bet takes us out to Selhurst Park, where Crystal Palace are playing against West Ham. Now, I know these aren't two big market teams, but that's fine, because usually those are the types of games where you can find the most value. And because of that, I'm going to be making a same game parlay where we're going to be relying on Eze to have 2 shots as well as having 1 on target, and we're going to be backing both teams to score. So let me explain why. Let's focus on the player prop firstly, because I think that's the easier part of this. Last season, Eze had 2 shots in 21 of 24 games. In fact, he had 1 shot on target in 17 of 24 matches. And I'm not really worried about the player prop part of it, because Eze is the real talisman of this team now with Elise gone. And the stats from game week 1 really back that up, where he put up 0.4 XG in the game, taking 7 shots with 3 on target. So that's why I'm not worried about the player prop part of it, but I'm more so worried about the both teams to score. Now, when we look at Crystal Palace, they played against Brentford in the first game and they put up 1.2 XG in the game, as well as West Ham, who played against Aston Villa, and they put up 2.5 XG in the game. So both teams put up more than 1 XG, meaning that they should have scored 1 goal at least, and of course they did. Now, the reason why I'm so sold on both teams to score is because the Crystal Palace center backs are likely both going to be out, because there are a lot of transfer rumors circulating around them. We got confirmation with the "here we go" from Fabrizio Romano, and he confirmed that Joachim Andersen is moving from Crystal Palace to Fulham, so they're going to be without one of their main center backs. And there are a lot of transfer rumors around Margehi, who's trying to make a move to Newcastle. So I'm not sure if either of them are going to be starting in that game, and that's why I just feel like Crystal Palace will probably concede. And because they're at home, I think you can always just back them to score. They're a really attacking team under Glasner, and that's definitely what we noticed last year, is that they scored as well as having a very strong defense. But because their main defenders are out, I think it's fine to assume that both teams will score, especially because West Ham have a lot of threat on the counterattack with players like Bowen, Kudus, as well as Somerville. I think they'll definitely get something on the counter. The reason why I'm so sold on both teams to score is that it has historical significance. In the last 10 Premier League matches where Crystal Palace has played against West Ham, both teams to score has hit in all 10 games. And that's why I'm going to be going with this game parlay for 2.15 odds on Bet365 and only placing 1 unit on it. My second best bet takes us out to Craven Cottage, where Fulham are going to be playing at home to Leicester, a newly promoted team. Now, Fulham are the type of team that is a bogey squad to not only the bottom half teams, but also the top half teams as well. Craven Cottage generally was a fortress last year, especially against teams in the bottom half, where Fulham played 9 games against bottom half teams, picking up 6 wins, along with 1 draw and 2 losses. So at home, I feel like you can back them, especially playing as one of the newly promoted teams, Leicester, who are the most likely team to get relegated according to the bookmakers. So the double chance for Fulham makes sense in this position, and I'm going to be adding in Rodrigo Muniz to get a goal or an assist. The issue with Muniz is that he's not a 90-minute man. He's not on the penalties for Fulham, but he did feel like the talisman for Fulham last year. I know he didn't start every single game. In fact, he only started 18 games last year, but he got a goal or an assist in 8 of those matches, which is a 44% return rate. But I just feel like last year was a type of year where he broke out and he earned the trust of his manager, as well as showing to the world that he is a good quality striker. Now he has the number 9 shirt. He's a proper striker, making his home debut with a 44% return rate. I just feel like that will increase to maybe 50 or 55%, especially if we consider his stats at home. So that's why I want to be backing him. And if you take into account that he's going to be playing against Leicester this week, as well as Ipswich next week, and they're giving me odds of 2.45, I just have to jump on this. The value is just too good for me to ignore. So that's why this is going to be my second best bet of the game week. My third best bet of the game week takes us out to Manchester. And no, it's not going to be Man United. It's going to be Manchester City playing at home at the Etihad against one of the newly promoted teams in Ipswich. Now, Ipswich had their first game week against Liverpool at home, where they put up a very solid performance in the first half, keeping it to 0-0 because they pressed Liverpool high, and Liverpool just didn't have enough time on the ball, as well as having enough cohesion as a team to break the press, and it ended up being 0-0. But in the second half, Liverpool blitzed them, putting up 2.3 xG in the second half, 2.5 xG in the game, and scored 2 goals. Now, if we look at the next game for Ipswich, and it's coming up against Man City, jeez, I just feel bad for them. Whoever made this schedule was just so rude. I feel like Ipswich's season really starts after game week 3. I know they're going to be playing away from home, so they probably won't be playing as aggressively as they did at home. But regardless, I just think you can be backing Man City to be getting at least a couple goals. In fact, when we look at the underlying bookmaker odds for this fixture, they're expecting Man City to have the highest XG of any team this game week with 3.3. And Haaland is the most likely player to get a goal, and his projected expected goal involvement is 1.3. And with Haaland, his expected goal involvement is usually weighted more so towards goals. So backing Haaland to get a goal in this fixture just makes sense. But the odds for Haaland to score are just at 1.5, so you need to be adding something onto it to get the odds up to 2.0. And that's why I'm going to be adding Rico Lewis for a shot or Josh Gvardiol for a shot. Now, this isn't some like crazy bet. It's that I have 2 different bet slips, and I'm going to be cashing out one of them based on the lineup that's released. What I noticed is that Josh Gvardiol's positioning is determined by the partner that he's playing with as the other wingback. Whenever Rico Lewis is partnering Josh Gvardiol, I feel like Pep gives Rico Lewis a license to push forward. But when Kyle Walker is partnered with Josh Gvardiol, then Gvardiol gets a license to push forward. I'm not sure who's going to start, and that's why I'm going to be having those 2 bets and then just cashing one of them out once the lineup's released. Of course, if Walker is starting, I'll be keeping the Gvardiol bet, but if Rico Lewis is starting, then I'll be going for the Rico Lewis bet. Just some background for Rico Lewis. I'm not sure if you guys have even heard of him, but he's a defender for Manchester City, but he's really a midfielder. And you got to keep in mind that they're playing against Ipswich, so they won't be doing much defending. In fact, I'll expect Man City to be having at least 60 or 70% of the possession. I'd expect Rico Lewis and Gvardiol to be very high, close to the 18-yard box of the opponents, and that's why I think they'll be within close proximity to taking a shot. So as long as we get that, we'll be fine, and that's why I'll be backing one of the defenders to get a shot and Haaland to score at 2.2 odds on Bet365. My fourth best bet takes us out to Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, where Spurs are going to be playing at home to Everton. Now, I know it's going to be really difficult to be backing Spurs in a fixture like this because we just lost money on betting Spurs in game week 1, but this is the perfect revenge spot for Spurs because now they're going to be at home in front of their home crowd. Solanke is going to be making his home debut, and that's why I want to be backing him for 2 shots with 1 on target. Now, when I was watching the game in game week 1, I felt like everything Spurs was doing was trying to be building chances for Solanke, to the point where I found that Son and Johnson were just so wide. And you could see that from the underlying data, where Solanke had 0.4 xG in the game, taking 3 shots and having 3 shots on target as well. So I feel like the player prop is not really going to be the issue. It's going to be, can Spurs pick up the win? Now, the interesting thing to note is that Everton are going to be without likely Jarrett Brantwaite, who is continuing to be injured, and James Tarkowski, their other center back, is a doubt. And they've also got a red card to Ashley Young, so he's not going to be playing there, and you can never really trust Everton to score. But with that said, you can never really trust Spurs to keep a clean sheet either. So I think I'd probably back Everton to get 1 goal, but I don't want to be betting that. I would just be expecting Spurs to score at least 2 goals in this game. This is a perfect revenge spot at home to go out there and score and pick up the win. It was a very disappointing result in game week 1, and I'm just expecting to bounce back. And that's why I'm going to be going with a same game parlay of Solanke, 2 shots, 1 on target, as well as Spurs to win for 2.0 on 365. My fifth and final best bet of the game week is going to be Alexander Isak to score or assist. Now, this game is going to be played at the Vitality Stadium. Bournemouth are going to be at home, but I'm kind of in this mode where I'm trying to fade Bournemouth. I really like Iriola as a coach, but they've lost key players. They lost Senesi, their main center back, and they've lost Solanke, who's their main striker. Semenyo has been picking up the role as the starting striker, but Ivan Nielsen has been signed to replace Solanke. Maybe he'll start, maybe he won't. But either way, I've seen this countless times where a Premier League team tries to sign and integrate a new striker into the team and they're just not up to speed. So until I see them gel, I just kind of want to be fading them as a team. And that's why I want to be backing Newcastle and Alexander Isak in particular. Now, Isak is so smooth. He's so silky whenever I watch him. He's one of my favorite players. And you got to keep in mind that he is an XGI overperformer because he picked up underlying data of 18 expected goal involvements and he got 23 goals and assists. In addition, Isak loves to play games on Sundays. He's had 10 games where he started a game on a Sunday and he has 10 returns. However, he does have 4 blanks in there. Just a reminder that Isak started 27 games last year, picking up at least 1 goal or 1 assist in 16 of those matches, which is a 60% return rate similar to the Sunday start rate as well. So his data is really strong, and if I'm getting odds close to 2.0 and the odds of something like this is closer to 60% in my mind, I have to be taking this. So the odds are 1.9 and I'm going to be adding Man City money line on this because I feel like the chance of them getting a win should be at like 99% in my mind. So I'm just going to be adding that on and that takes us up to 2.1. All right, so those are going to be my 5 best bets for Game Week 2. I really hope that Game Week 2 is all you dreamed it to be and I'll catch you guys again soon. Peace.